at this time. So thank you everybody for coming to our Lunch and Learn Student Edition. This is a 2024 WACMA Mental Health Workforce and Development effort that provides insight on educational pathways in the mental health field with connections to students' experiences. So we really want to just highlight our students who are in these fields and giving more insight to people who are also interested and curious about the field who want to go toward that direction. So for more information on WACMA, our organization, our initiatives and efforts, you can follow us or visit us on our website or follow us on our Facebook page. And then just really quickly, a few housekeeping. Again, this is a recorded session, so if this is, permissible by you, please continue to join in on us. Otherwise, you're more than welcome to view the recorded version that will be uploaded later onto our WACMA YouTube channel. You are welcome to also keep yourselves muted or also, uh, remove yourselves from video. We will have our speakers on video and also talking the entire duration. Audience members, we ask that you save your questions at the end in case our speakers did not discuss or touch upon anything that you are wondering about. And so we will have Q&A at the end here. And then I also just want to emphasize that, just to also keep in mind that this is the students' experiences within their specific programs. And so this might not encompass all sorts of programs within counseling psychology and nurse practitioner. And so just a few of those things to keep in mind. And then without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speakers for today. We have Kua Mua, who is a BSN registered nurse, and she is a doctoral candidate within the Doctorate of Nursing Practice at University of Wisconsin-Madison in the psychiatry emphasis. And then we have Joel Lohr, who is the doctoral candidate in the counseling psychology program, also at UW-Madison. So without further ado, I'm going to hand this over to both of them if there's any more introductions that they would like to do before we move on.
Claude, do you have anything you need to add or?
No, I think this is great. We can continue.
Yeah.
So at this time, if both of the students can just kind of do a program highlight, very briefly talking about the program of your study, if there's any emphasis in the programs that you would like to tell other people about. I think duration and transparency of what these programs look like for our audience members is always good to know about. And parsing out between the didactic and the clinical times that you allocate within your academic programs. And then, as always, we always want to know what other careers can you do with your program and degrees?
I guess I'll go first. So I'm studying the Doctorate of Nursing Practice. So that is the highest degree that I can get as a nurse. As a nurse, if I want to get higher education, I do have the option of the Doctorate of Nursing Practice um, or a PhD. I chose the Doctorate of Nursing Practice instead of the PhD. The PhD would entail more research and teaching, whereas the Doctorate of Nursing Practice would be more focused on implementation, so taking evidence and practicing, doing clinical practice. And that's what I chose to go into. And the emphasis that I chose to specialize in is psychiatry, as already mentioned. At my school, UW Madison, we offer 4 different tracks. I believe one is public health, another is acute care, and another is adult geriatric, and then the other one, pediatrics. So, very different programs and very specific focus. With my focus in psychiatry, I do specialize in treating the whole lifespan. And so much of my study has been from infant to upwards, taking care of geriatric patients. As far as how long my program is, it's 4 years. And so I believe a while back we had a 3 to 5 year program, but in the last few years it's been cut down to 3 to 4. And so, though I'm part time right now in my semester, for much of my program, I was full time. Um, and with career trajectories, I'm hoping that in the future um, I can teach as well as practice, and so I'm hoping to do that in the future. And I'm really passionate about program development, so I would hope to also be involved with that in the future.
All right, and then to switch it over to talking about a doctoral level of education and counseling psychology here. So, counseling psychology, I'm happy to talk about like what is counseling psychology, how is that different from clinical psychology or some of the other subfields within psychology itself. If folks are interested in that, feel free to submit that in the Q&A box or save your question for later. But a doctoral sort of level of training in counseling psychology focuses on research, clinical practice, and also, of course, some of your didactics or your coursework itself. So those are the three main areas of which you would be most involved in. And I think what makes the PhD level unique in counseling psychology is that there's a lot of training across different types of services that you could provide ultimately as a psychologist. So, whether that is clinical practice, like doing individual therapy, group therapy, psychological assessments, or also supervision of upcoming trainees in the field of psychology, or consultation. So, providing psychological consultation services to community orgs, to businesses, whatnot, like anything you can really name, and being able to do consultation service on the side. So, there's a lot that you could do with a PhD level in counseling psychology. I think that's the unique part of it is that you get to get trained in all these different activities within the field of psychology itself. That said, some of the career trajectories here. So, like I said, there's a lot of ways you could go about in counseling psychology. And the first that I'll mention is clinical practice, right? So, like I said, you could practice across a variety of different settings with the skill set that you come in with. So, psychologists are found in hospitals, clinics, private practice, public settings like community mental health centers or public hospitals, group practice where you're practicing with a lot of other psychologists or mental health providers, also in research or academic institutions too, providing mental health services or doing research in the field of psychology. Right now, I have a colleague who got her PhD a couple of years ago, and now she's a psychologist at the VA hospital in New York. So that's just an example of some of the folks I know and what they've done. In academia, like I said, with a PhD level of training, you could do research, you could do teaching, or you could do clinical training where you're involved in teaching the next generation of psychologists as well. And so that involves supervision, that might involve teaching classes, that might involve doing research about training itself. One of my good friends who just graduated last year, and he got his PhD last year. He's a really close friend of mine. He's now a tenure track professor at a university in New Jersey. So he's involved in doing some of the training of the new generation of psychologists. He also teaches statistics and other topics within psychology as well. So that's, again, just an example of someone I know who went on to pursue academia. And then, like I mentioned earlier, too, there's also the possibility of doing consultation work as a psychologist. And so this might look like offering mental health needs assessment to businesses or organizations. This might look like working with folks in designing curriculum that would be related to mental health topics or promoting mental health in the community. An example of mine is I have a really close colleague right now who runs a social media platform, and she gets paid to run workshops. She does guest speaking. She also designs curriculum related to BIPOC mental health as well. So those are things that she actually gets paid to do as part of her consultation side. And so again, I think there's a lot of variety in what you can do with a doctoral level of training in counseling psychology, and you get to kind of have a pick of what you like to do and move on to specializing in those sort of services that you provide.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much for a program highlight of both of your programs. And let's do a deeper dive into the student experience. And so if you could just take this time to really share some highlights and challenges, highs and lows of your programs, or your journey in general, and including your clinical experiences in control research and what you're really doing for your doctorate degrees would be great.
I'll go first. So currently I am in my last semester of my program. Um, I would say some of the highlights of my program would be really good supportive faculty and colleagues that I feel like we've really become family. And so I feel like that's some of the highlights of my career. I've also had the opportunity to also network with some really amazing and talented practitioners. So I feel like my program has given me the opportunity to see how high I can go and how far I want to go. Some challenges. I am holding many hats. I am also a mother, a daughter, a wife. And so I feel like at times it was very a challenge to juggle the different hats. And it's very difficult to have a family and also be in full time graduate studies. And so I've been also working throughout my studies. So I feel like there's just never enough time. And so I feel like that has been one of my biggest challenges. Um, as far as clinical experiences, our program requires about 1,000 hours of clinical time. And so I've had various experiences, inpatient, outpatient, um, community programs. So I started off at St. Mary's in the inpatient psych unit there. Um, and then from there, I went to Rock County Behavioral Health Services, assisting a preceptor there who um, works primarily with crisis stabilization patients. So, generally, patients who have just been um, sorry about that, have just been discharged from the hospital and may need a little bit more support. So they enter the community comprehensive services, which is provided by their county. And so I've had that. And then this semester, I'm back in inpatient at Meriter. And then I'm looking forward to going into pediatrics focus this semester. So I'm eager for that. As far as community, I've been with the Southeast Asian Healing Center, formerly known as the Kashia House. And so I've had the opportunity to precept with Dr. Coleman, who we've heard rumored has retired many, many times. But I've had the opportunity to precept with him and have him as my mentor. So that's been very exciting for me. Um, Doctoral research. Right now, I'm working on a scholarly project with Healing House. It's a medical respite for families experiencing homelessness. So it's one of the few programs in the state and in the country, actually. It's a program a respite program provided to families who had just recently been discharged from the hospital and currently experiencing homelessness. And so, what we're looking to get out of this project is how helpful this program has been for these families and what kind of changes have we been able to implement in our communities. And so, how, for example, the cost savings to hospitals in the local area when these families are given this kind of support to prevent future readmissions to the hospitals. And so I'm hoping to finish that up before I graduate. And so that's something I've been working on. And then I've also had project assistantships with um, a professor who's currently at the UW nursing school, my Chulor. She's worked on various projects, so I've assisted with her on those different projects. So I'm happy to talk about that as well. Thank you.
And for myself, regarding some of the highlights so far, being a graduate student going through counseling psychology PhD program, I think the biggest highlight for me is, and this might, I don't know, sound a bit obvious, but I think is really learning and doing the thing that I love. Like intellectually, I think learning about mental health, learning about clinical services is really stimulating to me. And being in the field and actually providing the service, like doing it, experiential learning, and taking on the identity as a provider, it's amazing. I love being in the field. I feel alive when I'm in the field doing clinical work. And so I think the biggest highlight for me is actually learning and doing the thing that I love. And always feeling in awe, always feeling like I have so much more to learn and wanting to actually learn that, like being intrinsically motivated to actually move towards this. So I think for me, it's that passion that really aligns with what intellectually stimulates me and also keeps things interesting for me in my world of work. I think regarding a challenge for me as a student, I think some of the challenges are kind of obvious, like being able to balance right schoolwork and also having a personal life and relationships with other folks, and right being able to take time off to go on vacation or be with family or anything like that. I think in addition to that, some of the other challenges too are around um, keeping myself, like, motivated to, like, keep moving forward, like, getting a PhD in my field takes between 5 to 7 years, so it's a really long time to commit to, getting a PhD, and so I think throughout those years, trying to remind myself of, like, how far I've gotten and why I wanted to get here, like, what do I ultimately want to get out of this experience, right? It's my PhD, it's getting licensed, it's being able to do the work as the actual provider, and so reminding myself, like, this is worth it. Like 5 to 7 years is going to be worth it for me so that I can get to that point of being able to build my career and enjoy my career as an independent licensed psychologist. I think regarding my clinical experiences, had a lot of variety in my clinical experiences so far. So I've worked in an inpatient forensic hospital where I focused on doing psychological assessments that informed some of the patient care going on at that facility. I worked at the VA hospital where I provided cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia for veterans who are experiencing insomnia. I also worked in my department training clinic where I specialized in providing services only to underrepresented college students and also doing some consultation work with some of the diversity programs on campus as well. And then this year, I have been very lucky to be able to come back to my hometown, the Twin Cities in Minnesota, where I'm currently a psychology trainee at one of the county mental health center, where I do individual therapy. I also help to co-facilitate a substance use group with other providers there. And then I also do some psychological assessments to help folks in their application towards some government benefits like Social Security or disability benefits or such. So that's a bit about my clinical background. Happy to talk some more about that or what that's like kind of going from different settings or doing again some of the variety of clinical activities there. Regarding my doctoral research, so right now I'm currently running my dissertation study. And for those of you who don't know, a dissertation is sort of that last milestone in a PhD trajectory. So it's the big project that basically says you can you can design and run a study and then write about it and come to sound conclusions at the end. That kind of makes you that scientist getting that PhD at the end. And so right now, I'm currently in the middle of recruiting for my dissertation study, which focuses on the sense of racial, ethnic, cultural identity among Southeast Asian Americans and their sense of social connectedness among others as well on a day-to-day basis. Given that we know that cultural identity and social connectedness are both tied to people's health outcomes across their lifespan. So really wanting to see how do those two concepts fluctuate or associate with each other on a day-to-day basis for folks who are of Southeast Asian descent. Prior to this dissertation, I've done some other projects related to the mental health of college students, specifically underrepresented college students, and also did some research around designing a curriculum to promote critical consciousness among Hmong and Latinx youth, as well as some other projects. I'm happy to talk more about that. But so doctoral research, kind of like my clinical experiences, it's been a variety of things. And I think that really speaks to just my interest in having a variety of things on my plate to keep things interesting. And also, I think speaks to the freedom of which you are able to kind of pursue these academic inquiries as well in a PhD study.
Wow, I don't know about everybody else, but I hope you're all kind of taking this in and digesting it in as best as you can. I think, we can obviously see the differences and similarities between the two. So thank you both for sharing and shedding some light about your student experiences. I think this segues in really great. Just gonna kind of go based off of the challenges that you both shared. And it segues nicely into our next slide of talking about school, work, and life balance. So evidently, you both hold a lot of different roles and hats within your personal lives, along with being a full-time student. And so I'd like to really just take this time to really just, do a deeper dive. Joel, you kind of talked a little bit already about, the self-care that you do. And but using this time to really talk about that school work life balance and how you dedicate 4 to 7 years of your life to really pound out some of these doctorate degrees. What do you do for affirmations and grounding? How do you really make sure that you do take time to be performative in your self-care, right? You're teaching other people how to be to take care of themselves, to decipher between some of their psychological thoughts and mental illnesses and mental health. You're, performative in that instance, but how do you also exert that within your personal lives as well?
So I do you want to go first?
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. I can pick up from that. So I think kind of elaborating on what I've already said, I think one of the big things that I've had to learn over the years and I'm continuing to practice is that I get to choose what my life looks like. So I think making that informed decision that, right, like I know I'm going to spend 5 to 7 years moving into this, like, and knowing that it's going to be a very intense, stressful time of my life, but also that it's a temporary time of my life for what I ultimately get at the end, right? Which is a PhD, being able to pursue becoming a licensed psychologist and being able to do all of these activities independently once I get my license. So I think for me, reminding myself that I get to choose this, like I get to choose what my life looks like. And I get to choose like what stressors I allow myself to tolerate or have to deal with, right? So like homework or maybe staying later at the clinic just to finish up notes or things like that. And I also get to choose the people I surround myself with, right? Like I think the training is a big part of my career, of course, but also I think the people that I get to be around in my class, at the clinic, or anywhere really, like, do I actually enjoy being around these people and learning with them and socializing with them? And I am very grateful that I actually have people that I enjoy being around and being able to learn from and learn with. So I think taking an active stance in the things that I am able to do around my school, my work, and my life areas, and being able to make a decision about what things I allow into my life or what things I allow to take up my capacity ultimately. I think the other thing too, in talking about this topic, is learning to, I think, express gratitude for the things that I do have in my life, which has helped me to kind of sometimes address my burnout. It also reminds me again of like what got me here in the first place, right? So remembering like, I know 10 years ago, I was like, I really want to be in graduate school. And now I'm in graduate school. And that's like one of the things I'm really grateful for, is being able to actually learn and do the thing that I wanted to do like 10 years ago. And I'm very close to like the end. I have like a couple of years left and I'll get my PhD. And so I think reminding myself of how grateful I am for the place that I am in my career trajectory at the point, and also reminding myself of like the things that I actually enjoy about this practice or about this field of study. So those are some of the things that help to keep me grounded or help me to move from a stance of being like a passive observer of my life to actively taking uh, uh, actively taking an approach to my decision making.
Thanks for sharing that. That's super empowering. I think it's been pretty similar for me as well. I think early on when I started my program, I think it was very important for me to lean on people who um, I knew that were supportive of my decision to pursue graduate school. Um, I think being in graduate school, it's kind of you're living this life that most people don't know what it's like. And so you don't ever really want to make people feel like they're second to what you're doing. And um, it can get stressful if you kind of lose your direction when you hear people out instead of focusing on where you're headed. And so I think it's very important early on for me to find people that supported my decision to pursue graduate school and like leaning on my colleagues, and leaning on my professors and being able to talk to them and not superficial, but this is what's going on. Here are some of my challenges this week, and just hearing each other out, and not necessarily solving anyone's problem, but validating each other. And I feel like that's been really helpful. Um, also, realistically, I live in the moment, and so, it may be day to day or it may be week by week, and so, I know this bothers a lot of people I know that are close to me who are looking to plan and do things with me, but realistically, um, given how quickly my schedule changes and how many things I'm committed to right now, um, it can be difficult to be able to keep in touch with people who you want to let them know that you do care. But given that you're working on your schooling and balancing work and life, sometimes you do have to make some sacrifices and to give yourself grace for those things. And so that's kind of something that I think I've been working on my whole graduate career. I don't think that I ever not felt guilty. And it wasn't until recently, I would say this year, that, you know, now that the light is in sight, like, I know that, all the sacrifices that I have made had led me to this point. So um, that guilt, that weight of guilt that I've carried for a long time is kind of now um, kind of disintegrating off my shoulders. But early on, when you start, it can be really stressful. And I've found that leaning into what I'm studying, and I feel like I'm very privileged because I'm studying psychiatry. And so I'm using a lot of the medicine that I'm learning on myself as well. And I've found that along the way, I've kind of addressed some of my own trauma, some of my own mental um, illness or instability or things that I could work on myself. And so I feel like that has been the greatest medicine for me along the way as well. And so um, those are kind of some of the different things that I've done for myself. I've also done some things like some extracurricular programming. And so recently I participated in a Hex Scholar. They have an immersion program where you can join other students who are in graduate school from across the state, and you can go into a community and learn about some of the different health disparities that they have going on in their community. And you get the opportunity to kind of connect and bond with all these other students who are in different areas of studies. So, for example, we had a clinical psychology student, we had a physical therapy student, an occupational therapy student. And so it was just a really great opportunity to also let out some of those graduate student stressors that you've been dealing with and be able to kind of like not necessarily be in your professional self, but be vulnerable and get to know each other and share some of your challenges with each other. And so all of these things have been super helpful.
Thank you both so much about sharing some of your vulnerabilities, and I think just packing more into some of the challenges that you continue to navigate between school, work, and life balance, and just being transparent with all of us in this space. And so we're very close to the end of this. And so I know that you guys have also talked about the light at the end of the tunnel for both of yourselves. And so something that, as audience members too, we might be curious about is, what does postdoctorate anticipation look like for both of you? What is in near sight of the light at the end of the tunnel experience?
So I can go first, I think. Um, so maybe just to start off broadly, in counseling psychology, um, getting a PhD in counseling psychology, postdocs are it depends situation. So if one were to go into academia or research, postdocs, only if you would be interested in building up more of your research experience or sort of that resume of like research in order to market yourself in the field of academia or research, then you would want to pursue a postdoc, but only if you wanted to build further your research resume. I think if you were to go into clinical practice, then again, a postdoc it depends. Like some places will hire folks who are straight out of their PhD training and help them get licensed without necessarily requiring a postdoc, whereas some other places may require a postdoc prior to hiring them on as a what we call a full staff psychologist. And so an example of that would be VA hospitals. Like the VA hospital in Houston, Texas, for example, only takes folks who have their PhD and have fulfilled a postdoc, and then we'll hire them on as a staff psychologist at that hospital. There's other hospitals out there. I think there's one in LA that doesn't necessarily require that postdoc. So it's always an it depends situation of like where you're looking to actually practice and what they're requiring for folks regarding their background. And clinical practice as well, postdocs can be helpful if you want to specialize in an area or get a very specialized training. And so again, that would be like something that would be beneficial to you to spend another 1 to 2 years if you're training in. But again, it's an it depends situation. I know for myself, I am in. I don't know. I'm not decided. I have not yet decided whether I want to pursue a postdoc, and I think a part of that is like I am kind of tired of being in training, and I think I would like to get a full staff psychologist position so I can move on into the next part of my career and I have some stability. Um, so I think we'll see a year or two from now what that postdoc, like the reason for the postdoc would be, but it would have to be a really specific reason for folks to get a postdoc within counseling psychology.
Thanks for your insight. I feel like I'm kind of in the same direction. Um, with this being my last semester, I've kind of dabbled into looking at that direction of stability. But I have been teasing myself with several fellowships as well. And so in my career, you can, once you graduate, you can become a faux practicing nurse practitioner, or some people may choose to do what's similar to medical residence, a fellowship of some sort or residency after graduating. And so, primarily, some people will do the fellowships to earn more experience. to get the opportunity to work with a variety of a specialized population. So, for example, there's one that I've been looking at the Medical College of Wisconsin that focuses on community care. And then there's other programs like one at Duke University that focuses on the peripartum, postpartum part of psychiatry. And so, generally, fellowships, similar to what Joa was saying, are usually specialized. And so that's something that I've been looking at. I've been going back and forth on whether I am ready to commit myself to full time working status, as it's been a while. So I'm a little bit nervous about that commitment. And so kind of exploring that right now. And I would say if you're going into this field, you will not have any challenges finding job opportunities. It's about determining if the place of employment is you like their culture, if you feel like you can work well with them, if the population is meaningful to you, if the work is meaningful to you. So you're going to be exploring those things more so than being stressed out about whether you're going to get a job or not. You will. You just will be dealing with other challenges of which job makes the most sense for you.
Thank you both so much. So I think needless to say, the learning never stops. If you especially want to continue the learning or specialization, it never stops. And so thank you both so much. I think we're doing really good on time right now. We are going to take some questions and answers at this time. So if you have any questions that you would like to ask the speakers, please utilize the chat box. I can help facilitate those questions, or you're welcome to come off on mute and video too, just to have more of the personal interaction connection. So we'll take the next like 10 minutes or so and kind of do some question and answers.
Hi everyone. Hi Pranav. This is Malia. I'm also a fellow colleague at Wakma with Pranav, who's doing amazing facilitating the student panel. And thank you to Joa for sharing a bit about your journeys. I just thought it was super powerful when y'all were sharing about your balance, how you balance your school, work, and life. That is so real. And just wanted to like comment, which I don't have a question, but just wanted to really comment that like I heard that, and I hear how important it is to have a support system. And I just thought it was so powerful, Joa, when you shared that along the way you've had some self-awareness, and you've learned to also address your own mental health needs. And I feel like often it's so ironic that the folks who are, doing a lot of work that supports other people deal with their own needs, that, they often don't have that for themselves, or that gets kind of left behind. So thanks for saying that, the both of you, and sharing about how you handled that for yourself. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Malia. Thank you for joining us today. I don't see any other questions. I'll just kind of open it up for the next few minutes. If we don't have any questions, we can kind of end early, but I see that John also is on video and unmute himself. John, do you have any questions?
Yeah. Hi, Joe and Joe. I just want to say thank you for presenting your, your school and work and whatnot too. Great overview. I just have a question for you both. I know the topics of mental health and psychology is like very taboo in underrepresented communities of people of color, and especially, for example, like the Hmong community. In your schooling or your training or whatnot, do you guys, what kind of training or resources or tools do you guys have to address this in such communities like that?
I think to start off, I think one I don't know if tool is the right word, but I think a strength is to connect with folks who are already doing that work. And then to move forward with them. So I know, I think, Joy, you mentioned earlier, I think it was the Southeast Asian Healing Center in Madison. And so I think one thing is to connect with folks who have been doing that work for a long time and making the relationships with them, because they know what the local community is like, right? So like the Hmong community in Madison is very different from the Hmong community in the Twin Cities or from anywhere in California. And so I think being able to adapt to like what the local community is actually experiencing, or like what the current mental health field looks like there, is one way to kind of tap into that community and to do the work that feels congruent with them specifically. I think the other thing too is there are already licensed providers who are well known for doing like Hmong mental health work, right? So I think a lot about like, it's like Dr. Alyssa Bang, and I think about Dr. Paher in my department, and then the folks at the Southeast Asian Healing Center, and so I think again, connect with folks and being able to learn from them, and then moving into that community, doing work that's congruent with them, is one way to again do work that seems to kind of be a part of that like ongoing learning from our school educational life into the actual practice itself in the field. So one way to kind of bridge that, if that makes sense. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else that comes to mind for you.
Yeah, I would agree that using your resources and networking is very important, and is actually a vital resource in working with these kind of populations. Um, Unfortunately, I feel like my program, when I think about it, um, other than transcultural nursing, which broadly covers um, a lot of different cultures and ethnicities and races, and some of the health disparities that's happening right now, um, we don't go beyond that. And so I felt like much of what I've learned and what I've done in my career so far lies mostly in my interest and what motivates me to make my career meaningful to me. And so I feel like if I want to help Hmong people, I want to help other people who are vulnerable and are not getting the health care that they need. I feel like I, as a person, have had to make that extra step. And so having to connect to someone so that I could learn about what they do and what has been helpful for them working in um, that population. And so I feel like in the Milwaukee vicinity, I found reading historical books about the people who have lived there and a lot of the different the segregation piece of it, the health disparity piece, the social determinants of health piece of it, primarily in the African American population on the north side of Milwaukee. I felt like reading that book and then connecting with people who work um, in that area has helped me to learn how to connect with the people there and their acceptance of me and my ability to connect to them and be able to provide resources to them. Um, so I feel like one of the biggest thing for me um, that I've learned so far is that you have to go out to the community and to be able to reach and help people. You can't sit at a clinical office and hope that they'll come to you with their problems. And so, because of the stigma, just in healthcare in general, among our community is still something that's very real. And so, um, similar to my experiences in the Milwaukee community, I've applied that to Madison since I've been here. And so connecting with some of those key people who work in the community has helped me to be able to connect and kind of learn about what works in their community. And um, being a student, I feel very privileged because when you're a student, arms are usually wide open to you, and people are really willing and trust you. And so I hold that to very high regard. And I really make sure that I'm doing a good job, and that I let them know that I am, fully committed to them. Um, One thing that I've found that is very helpful is that, like Joa has mentioned, there's resources across the state, across the nation. And so I've been very privileged to connect with Dr. Coleman, and he's invited me to so many networks. And so I'm actually attending a refugee health network this Friday. And so an opportunity to connect with all people across the state who work with refugees, immigrants, and, learning what works and what hasn't worked and what kind of funding is available. And so helping the clinics that I work with connect to resources that are out there. And so I feel like the resources are out there, but how you know and who you know is very important in this field.
Thank you both for elaborating on that. Any other questions at this time? Networking is so, so important. And I think we know that even as an organization like WACMA, networking is also important for us as well. Okay. All right. If there's no other questions at this time, I just want to thank everybody for attending. If there's any other questions that you have, feel free to email me at panat@wacma.com or .org. And if you want to be connected to any of the speaker by any means, feel free to also connect with me after the session. Thank you everybody so much for attending. I hope that you have a great day.
Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for having me.